My name is Angelina Jolie, but you may not know the real story of my life. You've heard about the movies, the awards, and the headlines. But what if I told you there is so much more? My life has been filled with secrets, struggles, and choices that changed everything, from my childhood dreams to the darkest nights, from the brightest red carpets to lonely hotel rooms. I have lived it all. Some moments will surprise you. Some may even shock you. And as you listen, you will also learn English in the most natural way. Real words, real feelings, real life. This is not just my biography. It's a journey you will feel in your heart. Are you ready to hear the truth? Chapter 1. Born into the Spotlight. My name is Angelina Jolie, and I was born on June 4th, 1975, in Los Angeles, California. My parents were actors, my father, John Voight, and my mother, Marceline Bertrand. From the very beginning, the camera was never far away. But my childhood was not as glamorous as people imagine. When I was just a baby, my parents' marriage began to fall apart. By the time I was a toddler, they had separated, and I grew up mostly with my mother, who gave up her acting career to raise me and my brother, James. We lived in a small apartment in Los Angeles. My mother was gentle and creative, but she struggled financially. Still, she filled my childhood with movies, encouraging me to dream about acting. I remember sitting with her, watching old films, and imagining myself on screen. At 6 years old, I landed a small role in a movie alongside my father, but I was too young to understand what it meant. My real childhood joy came from collecting knives and reading dark stories, interests that made people think I was strange. School was difficult. I was skinny, wore glasses, and had braces, so other kids bullied me. I felt like an outsider, and my confidence sank. At 14, I dropped out of acting school and decided I wanted to become a funeral director. I dyed my hair black, wore all black clothing, and explored the punk rock world. Life felt messy, but these years shaped my independence. By 16, I decided to return to acting. My mother supported me, driving me to auditions even when money was tight. I started modeling, traveling to New York and London, learning how to survive on my own. Around this time, my relationship with my father grew more distant, and I leaned on my mother for emotional strength. I didn't know it yet, but every hardship, every rejection, was preparing me for the unpredictable life that awaited me in Hollywood. Chapter 2. Breaking into Hollywood. By the time I turned 17, I was determined to make my mark as an actress. My early roles were small: music videos, low-budget films, anything that gave me a chance to perform. I remember working on sets where there was barely enough money for costumes, but I loved every second of being in front of the camera. My first real break came in the mid-1990s with movies like Cyborg 2 and Hackers. Hackers wasn't a big box office success, but it gave me something far more important. It introduced me to Johnny Lee Miller, my first husband. Our relationship was wild and unconventional. On our wedding day, I wore black rubber pants and a white shirt with his name written in my own blood. People thought it was shocking, but I never cared about following rules. Acting, however, remained my main focus. I began winning critical praise for roles in George Wallace and Gia. Playing supermodel Gia Karangi was life-changing. It was raw, emotional, and demanded everything from me. That performance earned me a Golden Globe and put my name on Hollywood's radar. I was known for my intensity, both on and off screen. At the time, I carried knives, had tattoos, and wasn't afraid to speak about my darkest thoughts. The media painted me as dangerous and wild. But the truth was, I was just being honest about my struggles with depression and self-identity. Behind the headlines, I was still that outsider kid, trying to prove I belonged. My career momentum continued with Girl, interrupted in 1999. Playing Lisa Rowe, a rebellious psychiatric patient, was a turning point. I threw myself into the role, and it paid off. I won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. Standing on that stage, holding the Oscar, I felt like all the years of rejection and pain had been worth it. But fame also brought more attention to my personal life, and soon my relationships and choices became as famous as my films. Chapter 3: Love, Loss, and Transformation. Winning the Oscar was supposed to be the happiest moment of my life, but instead, it came during a time of deep personal change. My marriage to Johnny Lee Miller ended, and I threw myself into work as a way to cope. I took on roles that challenged me emotionally, like Gone in 60 Seconds and Original Sin. But I also started to feel restless, like something was missing beyond Hollywood success. Then came my whirlwind romance with Billy Bob Thornton. We met while filming Pushing Tin, and our relationship became infamous overnight. We wore vials of each other's blood around our necks, kissed passionately on red carpets, and ignored the criticism. I know people thought it was bizarre, but for me, it was real. In 2002, we adopted my first child, Maddox, from Cambodia. That decision changed me forever. Holding Maddox for the first time, I realized that being a mother gave me a purpose far deeper than acting ever could. But as my life shifted toward motherhood, my marriage with Billy Bob began to crumble. The whirlwind faded, and we divorced the same year. I was suddenly a single mother, balancing film sets with sleepless nights and traveling back and forth to Cambodia. Those trips opened my eyes to the struggles of people living in poverty and war zones, and I started to work closely with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR. My visits to refugee camps left a lasting mark. I couldn't just go back to pretending those realities didn't exist. At the same time, my acting career was booming. I played Lara Croft in Tomb Raider, which became a global hit and turned me into a full-blown action star. The success brought bigger paychecks and more fame. But the real gift of that film was the life-changing trip to Cambodia for shooting. That's where my journey as a humanitarian truly began. I wasn't just Angelina the actress anymore. I was becoming Angelina the advocate. Chapter 4: A New Kind of Love and a Bigger Family. After my divorce from Billy Bob, I told myself I would focus only on Maddox and my work. Love wasn't on my list. Then came Mr. and Mrs. Smith in 2004. My co-star was Brad Pitt, and while we were just colleagues at first, The chemistry on set was undeniable. We laughed between takes, shared stories about life, and bonded over our love for travel and humanitarian causes. By the time filming wrapped, our friendship had grown into something much deeper. The media storm that followed was overwhelming. Brad's marriage to Jennifer Aniston ended, and suddenly the world was watching us. I tried to keep my private life private, but the attention was relentless. Despite the chaos, Brad became a constant in my life, a partner who shared my vision of building a family and making a difference in the world. In 2005, we welcomed Zahara from Ethiopia, and not long after, Shiloh was born in Namibia in 2006. Motherhood became the center of my universe. I wanted my children to know the world, not just from books, but by walking through it. I took them to refugee camps, introduced them to different cultures, and taught them kindness by example. In 2007, we adopted Pax from Vietnam, and our home was filled with laughter, languages, and a beautiful mix of traditions. Professionally, I kept challenging myself. I starred in A Mighty Heart as Marianne Pearl, a role that tested my emotional limits, and voiced Tigress in Kung Fu Panda. But no matter how demanding the work was, my children always came first. By 2008, our family grew again with the birth of twins, Knox and Vivian, in France. My life was now a balance between Hollywood sets, diaper changes, and missions as a UNHCR Goodwill Ambassador. Chapter 5: Trials, Strength, and a New Path. By 2012, my life seemed full. 6 beautiful children, a loving partner, and a career I cherished. Brad and I worked together in films like By the Sea, and though it wasn't a commercial success, it was deeply personal. That same year, we announced our engagement, and in 2014, we married in a small, family-centered ceremony at our home in France. The children wrote our vows and even decorated the veil of my dress with their drawings. It was perfectly us. But behind the happiness, I faced a private battle. In 2013, after learning I carried the BRCA1 gene mutation, I made the decision to have a preventive double mastectomy. It was a difficult choice, but I wanted to be there for my children as they grew. Later, I also had surgery to remove my ovaries and fallopian tubes. Sharing my journey publicly wasn't easy, but I hoped it would inspire other women to take control of their health. Around this time, Brad and I faced growing pressures. The media followed us everywhere, and our demanding schedules often kept us apart. In 2016, after a highly publicized incident on a private plane, I filed for divorce. The following years were marked by a painful custody battle, intense public scrutiny, and moments where I had to summon all the strength I had. It was a chapter of my life where resilience was my only option. Despite personal struggles, I didn't stop my humanitarian work. I continued visiting conflict zones, meeting refugees, and advocating for human rights at the United Nations. I also returned to the big screen with films like Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, and began directing more, telling stories I believed in. My life had changed in ways I never expected, but I learned that even in heartbreak, there's room for growth, purpose, and hope. Chapter 6: Rebuilding, Purpose, and the Journey Ahead. After the storm of my divorce, my life entered a phase of quiet rebuilding. I focused on creating a stable, loving environment for my children. Maddox, Pax, Zahara, Shiloh, and twins Knox and Vivian. Each of them was growing into their own person, with unique dreams and talents. I wanted to be present for their milestones, whether it was Shiloh's love for dance, Zahara's passion for design, or Maddox's studies abroad. My home became a place of healing, filled with art, music, and open conversations. I didn't step away from the spotlight entirely. Acting remained a passion, but I became more selective. I took roles that resonated deeply, like Those Who Wish Me Dead and voice work in The One and Only Ivan. My directing continued too, with projects exploring themes of resilience and injustice. Hollywood was still part of my life, but it no longer defined me. It was just one chapter among many. Humanitarian work stayed at the heart of who I am. In 2022, I visited Ukraine during the war to meet displaced families. I also worked with the UNHCR and later launched new initiatives to support refugees and women's rights globally. I wrote and spoke about the importance of empathy, justice, and global responsibility, encouraging young people to use their voices for change. By July 2025, I was embracing a balanced life, one where my identity wasn't tied to fame, but to purpose and personal growth. I'd faced public scrutiny, health challenges, and personal loss, but I had also known love, motherhood, and the joy of making a difference. My story was never about being perfect. It was about surviving, learning, and standing back up. And as I look to the future, I see it not as a final act, but as the beginning of new adventures still waiting to be lived. You've walked with me through the light and the shadows. You've seen the little girl who dreamed, the young woman who fought, and the mother who loves beyond limits. My story is still being written, and maybe yours is too. If these moments touched you, if you learned even one new word, or felt one new feeling, then this journey was worth it. Tell me, which part of my life surprised you the most? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I will be reading them. And if you want more true stories told from the heart, like and share this video so others can join us. This is Angelina Jolie, and this is only the beginning.